Hello guys, Foxwolf here, and today, as this is being recorded, guys, as this video is being recorded, we're about a couple days away until the famous Undisputed heavyweight fight with against Claressa Shields and versus Danielle Perkins. And there is a lot of information I might have not pointed out on my podcast as I done during Saturday, and even though there's another podcast coming as of yesterday ago, if you people have watched my videos yesterday. But guys, I do want to point things out about this. The World Heavyweight Championship in female boxing does not have a lot of prestige than I expected. And even though as this video is being uploaded today as we're speaking, I want to point out a lot of interesting things. Now, I already pointed out every single information about Claressa Shields and all her professional fights. I talked about Danielle Perkins and all her boxing fights, and I got through those ones a lot different than how Shields has gone through. But you look back at it, guys, it's not as particularly somewhat interesting to talk about because, guys, when I look back at these footages and everything else, there's nothing much to say about this. Now, first of all, guys, I like to point one thing out here. Now, guys, if you guys go onto topology.com where I do my votes, you viewers can actually see that, I'm sure people don't see this, but I go to topology.com and I point out that Claressa Shields is going to knock down Danielle Perkins in round number 3 by TKO in the third round. But at this moment, I'm actually going to change it to round 5. But yet again, I'm going to say round 7. That's going to be my pick. I just don't see this fight ending as much as I expected. I just think Claressa Shields has a much better workforce. She's a little bit shorter, but sometimes short can beat the tall people like David and Goliath. And guys, I see this really interesting. Like, even though Claressa Shields is not a knockout artist, but because of this, guys, here's the thing. Danielle Perkins is 42 years old. Her boxing career has been nothing. Like I said, guys, in August the 20th, 2020, she takes on Harrison for the first time, and she was 37 years old, just like Harrison. She was 37 that year, and Danielle won. She fought against a 1-0 fighter a few months later on December the 3rd, won that fight, comes in March the 5th, had a rematch with Monica for the WBC silver heavyweight title at 38 years old, wins. And for some reason, it just seems like there were a lot of people that didn't want to put a fight up onto her. It just seems like that she was on a 3-year hiatus because there wasn't a lot of competition. So her age and her body just gave a lot sooner. She was 41 years old when she came back 3 years later on March the 1st, 2024. Takes on a Hungarian woman that was 3-2, knocked her out 3 times in the second round, which was her best win. And those 4 professional fights were dominated wins against her. She had it. But when Christiane Fahey, a woman that had a 2-1 record, and now she's 2-2, a woman that was known for her a little bit of a first round knockout win she had some time ago in 2021, and gets another debut fighter, and then she had a round 2 knockout. And even though Christiane is 30 years old at that time and 29 or so when she fought those fights, and then in 2023 she loses against Mary Casamassa, which in that 6-round fight I believe that Christiane won that fight and not Mary. But when knowing about the information about that fight during the time when I was hearing about Claressa Shields versus Vanessa Lepage, because that was the same night during July the 27th, same night where they fought, it just seemed like Danielle Perkins, this was going to be her hard fight against Fahey. And surprisingly, Fahey put in a good effort on that fight. And even though the judges' scorecards had 2 of them going 59 to 55, 60 to 54, meaning that they think that Danielle dominated that fight one-sided, but I found that fight more harder than I expected. I had 58 to 56 barely scoring for Perkins. Like, there were times where where Fahey did had some interesting offense in some fights. Yes, her face was bleeding hard, but she was putting in a good effort against Danielle, and Danielle had problems with head movements. You viewers have to understand, Danielle Perkins has problems with a lot of things here, and I think when you viewers look at it, it really goes to show you that Danielle Perkins doesn't do a lot of movement in boxing because because when you're looking at this fight against Christian that day, you look at it thinking, well, I was only here to see what Claressa Shields was working on, and this is what I see. Like, Perkins is good. She had the heart. She has a great heart in her career, but she's 42 years old, taking on this 29-year-old GLOAT that might turn 30 years old next month. And that's a whopping age gap. Like Danielle Perkins might not be there as much. Like, yes, she survived a head-on collision, a crash in a grocery store. She came from all those obstacles to keep herself in shape and to make it back, and now she's in the top ranks. You gotta give her credit. She is on the game, but her age is not there as it is. Like, you have to understand, Shields' stamina, like, it's not good enough because Shields has a big stamina than anyone else has in women's boxing. And even though Shields has been sparring with male boxers, and there is some videos on YouTube that has shown one male boxer that did knock out Claressa Shields and took her to the ground, which was hilarious enough, but at the same time, whether that was an embarrassing moment online or not, if you viewers didn't remember that, it didn't mean that Shields was building up a chance that if that ever did happen to her in a female fighter, just like how Hannah Gabriel's knocked her out in the first round, then technically Shields can recover from those obstacles and prove it. Like, she's sparred with male boxers, whether they're better than her, but she's proved herself to take those punches and take the bloodiness. But in the 10-round, 2-minute fights for 10 rounds is a quick fight. And it makes sense why Claressa Shields doesn't knock out a lot of her opponents, because if these fights were like 3 minutes long in 10 rounds, then you think, yeah, Claressa Shields will have scored more than 3 knockouts in her career. And that would have been true. But due to the stamina, and the reason I say round 7 would be Claressa Shields' knockout win is because Danielle Perkins, her stamina is so low. Like, she isn't quick enough. She doesn't have the quickness to try to put in a good show. Like, she has a lot of power, but her slowness and her movements and her head movements, like, you have to understand, like, Perkins has a good punch, but it's not much of a knockout punch. And there's a lot more to it than just going one single round. You gotta go 10 rounds. And the thing is, guys, Claressa Shields has went through a lot of 10-round fights. Danielle Perkins' longest fight she's ever had in her career, considering going 6 rounds with Christiana Fahey, a 6-round fight with someone else she had a few months ago before that fight, a 4-round fight in her debut, 5-round KO win in a 6-round fight. She went 8 rounds to decision against Monica Harrison for the WBC Silver Heavyweight title. But even though, yes, she dominated the whole round, and those first 4 fights were dominated wins in her career, but it doesn't really pick up the pace for me. Like, it really is tough for me to fill in the blank and to prove if he has what it takes, because, like, guys, Claressa has a more aged appropriate. Like, she's still a young lad. She's boxed since 2016 in pro and in amateurs of her career. She might not be perfect, but no one is. So will that affect her? I don't think it will, because Danielle Perkins is 42 years old, past her prime, just like Kubrat Pulev. And even though a male and a female age difference could play factor into that, because sometimes our bodies might give out, but we don't know much about a woman's body that could give out at 42 years old. But depending that how many women are in the weight classes of heavyweight, light heavyweight, super middleweight, and middleweight, there's a factor into that we have to try to learn, and there's a lot of pressure about this fight because Perkins can get tired depending on how much struggling she's going to be into those rounds. And it made sense why, but I think Claressa Shields might take it easy in some couple rounds with Perkins, thinking if she can handle the first couple, and maybe in round 3 or round 4, she might give some hard time with Perkins because Perkins might get a lot into herself because she does take those punches decently. When someone throws a punch and hits Danielle Perkins, she can handle it, but is she going to handle a barrage of great fast speed punches and stamina on Shields? Like, even Christiane Fahey is a good fighter and somewhat of a little bit of a choke artist because her 2 last fights should have been wins she should have deserved. It just had to be controversial. Well, the last fight wasn't. Just Daniel Perkins just got lucky, in my opinion. I still had 4-2. But my point is, there should be more to it than you think. And I wish I could explain it more, but it's really tough because here's the thing. Claressa Shields still has a good amount of work into herself. Because Shields is going to walk through this woman in a huge run. Because Perkins, like, even though Perkins does have a great uppercut that can hurt Shields, considering how you look at it from a Tyson Fury versus Alexander Usyk, of how Fury can do those good uppercuts once in a while, and when he connects it, it can affect the fight. So Perkins does have that, but how lucky will she get that punch if Shields makes one mistake? But like I said before, she sparred against men in her career, so it's a real tough prediction. And even though we're a few hours away from the fight happening as this video is being recorded, as you're watching this, and even though Perkins is a southpaw fighter and Shields is an orthodox fighter, so when you count how many fights that Shields has ever fought against southpaw fighters, well, there isn't a lot in female boxing. So that will play an interesting fact where you have this person holding their hand like this and you have the other one holding their hand like that. So it is going to play an interesting fact. It's not going to be orthodox here and orthodox here. It's going to be like southpaw here and southpaw here. So it's going to play an interesting fact. So that will be one thing we have to understand. And even though, and don't get me wrong, even though you can be deceiving by it, because like I said, the punches aren't fast for Perkins, Shields can pick her shots wisely. Yes. Shields has to pick her shots wisely as she can, take some rounds on, and probably if she hurts Perkins, Perkins might get tired depending on her age factor because she's only went 8 rounds the distance in an easy rematch fight, but I just don't see her making it 10 rounds. Maybe a 10 round knockout, or maybe Claressa will just say, you know what, I have this fight in the bag, I'll just end it all 10 rounds, but I think we're just looking for a knockout here. Like, you can see some good overhands here, and you can see a little bit of that. Like, as a hard hitter, Perkins does have a good hard hit. But she's still slow. She's not an aggressor. And the thing about it, Shields can't underestimate her. Like, she should not underestimate Perkins. That's the only thing we have to worry about Shields there. But all in all, it's going to be tough because even though Perkins is a sloppy fighter that does sometimes throw some wild punches, but a lot of us boxers do that, so it's the way life goes. But the thing is, like, even though people do keep saying that Even though there's gonna be some people online that are gonna be like, "Oh, great, they're gonna wait. Who is this lady? Like this person's gonna fight Shields? What the heck, man, dude? Are they gonna find better competition for Shields? Where's the fights? Like, I think the problem is for some fans out there is that they don't know. Like, people have to understand one thing. Shields has been fighting in 4 weight classes and won 5 of them. The super welterweight has a lot of fighters, barely. But when you go to the middleweight, super middleweight, light heavyweight, and heavyweight, there's not a lot of competition there. It's a really small weight class division for women because we don't have a lot of big women. And a lot of women that do enter in the division at that weight class are basketball players. So, but yet again, like, is it gonna be that? Like, yes, if you're not gonna be successful in basketball, but you might as well say, hey, let's try that boxing. So it's possible, but even though Claressa won't have enough power to, I will say this though, Claressa might not get a round 7 TKO, but that's just my prediction. She won't have enough power to keep her off of her, as you know, because Perkins can take a punch from a real heavyweight, which we do see that from Fahey. Christiana Fahey did a good job proving on how hard Perkins' chin is. So, but yes, again, 42 years old, that will play a little bit of a factor. But yet again, a lot of females don't have a lot of power no matter how much they throw in. There's not a lot of power in females that can throw power punches. And even though that's the same thing for Shields, and even though Layla Ali had that special ability because of her father, and so she managed to score a 24-0 with 21 knockouts in her career, that's pretty good. But it can be unpredictable. It is possible that if you can tire out Perkins and give her a hard time, she might not last the final few rounds, which is why I say round 7's a TKO. So I do see that being the fact here. Because Claressa might take Perkins to school, but she has to be careful on her own weakness. And it's making a mistake. So you gotta be careful on that. Now, I don't see that happening, but this might be an upset victory here for what we might see. Because even though Perkins is all about power like George Foreman, and she can take a punch, the thing is, how much will she take against Shields? How many jabs will be landed? There's going to be a great round in competition. And guys, when the 10 rounds are up, I can see this scorecards going 99-91 favoring Shields if we go 10 rounds of distance. So if we don't get a knockout and we go 10 rounds of distance, I'll say maybe possible. Maybe Danielle Perkins will go might score 1 round in this fight. But if it's a knockout, that would change whole different thing. So I can see Perkins winning 1 round, depending on how luck if she gets it in the first few rounds. But everything else will be Claressa Shields. Like in the first 3 rounds, I might see Perkins win 1 round, but the last 7 rounds will all be Shields. That's just the way it goes. There's not a lot of competition, is what I'm trying to say here. Like, it's not going to be a walk in the park, but that doesn't mean that Shields will take Perkins. It's going to be really far away because you have to be careful for what you're doing. Because you have to understand, Shields has another good decade left in her career, right? Maybe another 5 or so years of great prime. She could do it. She has the endurance and stamina and the skill to be elusive and defensive all night because her speed will dominate the fight easily if she can win 10 rounds. But Clarissa Shields has been cocky a lot in her career. Like we've heard reports that she wants they want her to fight Jake Paul, which is just no, just don't prove it there. But she might get cocky from that stuff. So stuff outside the ring might affect her in this fight, but who knows? And but yeah, again, because she's 5'8" and Perkins is 6'2", will that play a factor? Well, like Canelo Alvarez defeated Sergey Kovalev, and he was 5'11.5", and well, Alvarez was 5'8", so that might not be much to talk about, but who knows? Like in the game, body shots are open, and there is some of that with body shots. Um, like she does have that chance to take punches, but at the end of the day, whatever's gonna happen, it is gonna be interesting because it will take a huge turnaround depending on what we're seeing. Because I do see Danielle Perkins being the only heavyweight that has talent in the heavyweight. If she was just 10 years younger at 32 years old, I could see an interesting good fight here. I just think the age difference will be effective in this fight. Um, but yet again, guys, do we see Claressa Shields scoring a knockout? I do believe she does have some power. It's just if the fights were longer, then there would have been chances for knockout. Like 2-minute rounds in boxing for women, it's just getting old. Like I just feel like we should just get more rounds for these people, and that's it. Like there's nothing much to say about that. But we'll have to wait and see and know what's gonna happen. But whatever's gonna happen, it'll happen. But yet again, well, yet again, who knows? Who knows what's gonna happen? It could be a. It's gonna be a tough situation here because it's gonna be interesting to say the least, and mostly it's going to be an easy win here for Claressa Shields, but yet again, it does take notice that Perkins does have to get one lucky punch, but one lucky punch doesn't mean it's a win. So I think we all have to be on high alert when it happens. So, I think my final conclusion to this video is whoever wins, wins. But Claressa Shields, undisputed champion, would make interesting history here. But what makes this fight interesting is that even though it's not going to generate a lot of hype here, because, guys, the only star rating on BoxRec rating this match is Claressa Shields and Daniel Perkins. It's only a 1-star fight. So it just goes to show you how uneventful the division is for women. But yet again, guys, if you can take that all into a perspective, I can see that Claressa Shields, if she does win this fight, and even if all the belts are going to be stripped, if she decides to go back down the weight class, for the heck of it, then that might generate more buzz in the heavyweight division for female. And if she decides to go down to the light heavyweight division and try to take another belt, that does not exist in the women's division, which I'm going to type that right now just to make sure what I got right and wrong. Give me a second. Boxing champion, women's current boxing champions. Current boxing champion. What's the belt? Yeah, the WBA light heavyweight belt is won by Chi Kanui, IBF, Lonnie Daniels, and WBO Claressa Shields. And of course, that belt will be stripped away because she's going to go for the WBO. So thank God. WBA is vacant for the heavyweight and IBF. So technically, whoever wins, wins. And it's kind of weird because the Ring Magazine belt does not exist in the women's heavyweight, but I think it will after this fight's over. And the lineal women's heavyweight is going to exist after this fight. So I do see that happening. So she's going to win like... yeah, and the WBF does exist. The IBO, not really. No one cares about that. So, yeah, she's gonna win like 5 more belts in this fight if she wins. So yeah, technically, and mostly the WBC light heavyweight in the women's boxing does not exist. So if Claressa Shields can go to the light heavyweight and take that belt away as well and make it active, we might bring boxing to a halt as a division. So, and by the way, guys, on Wikipedia list of current female world boxing champions, it does state right here that the women's cruiserweight is actually deactivated. So technically it's actually gone, which I'm happy for. So thank God. And guys, I actually like that women's boxing in the heavyweight is 175 pounds plus. And that's the unlimited, which means that it's okay if you're at 175 pounds. Because, guys, we don't want to see big, overweight women that are like 5 feet, 6 feet tall. And no offense to you women watching this. I'm sorry. But let me explain. Guys, we don't have a lot of tall females in the world today. And there's a lot of us grown men like myself that are 6'4", which that's how tall I am. And we have a lot of big people. And we have perfect height for females. And guys, the most perfect height for a female is 5'6". So if you have someone that's like 175 pounds that looks like a Mrs. Potato Head from Toy Story, that's what's going to be in women's boxing in the light heavyweight or even the heavyweight. So, but yet again, if we get these other tall girls, just like 6'2" Danielle Perkins, which she is at that weight as right now because her last weight fight with Christiana was 175.5 pounds, and her weight seems perfect in that division. So her body and her physical weight is in perfect shape. So she is in good shape. As of right now, we don't know how much weight it is because we haven't seen the scale or the weigh-in yet. So we don't know how much Perkins and Shields have weighed into this fight. But until that time comes, we'll see what's going to happen as time goes on. And so we'll see. We'll see. And you know what, guys? I'm just going to turn this into the GLOAT podcast just for the heck of it because there's a lot of information. I've been recording for 28 minutes. So, yeah, this will be another GLOAT podcast uploaded on Sunday, which I don't do. But you know what? Good to get some content for it. It's another episode. So, guys, I only have a few more minutes to talk right now. So here's the last thing I'll point out. My point is, guys, what I'm trying to tell you, viewers, is this. I enjoy that we now have Claressa Shields having all these belts vacant. I'm happy because even though this fight night might not be entertaining, Shields versus Perkins, but you know what? Maybe in the next 2 or so years, while all these belts are vacant, these belts will come back into the light and everyone will enjoy it. Because we'll have other females, like 4 or 6 females fighting for the WBA or even fighting for the WBO or even the WBC because the WBC has been the only belt fought for over a decade. And the IBF belt has only been fought since a couple years for Lonnie Daniels. And she left to go to the light heavyweight. And it took them that long to get that belt active. So it's great that we have Shields now putting both of those belts active for the first time. Like the year is 2025. We're already a quarter away from the 21st century. And finally, so I'm happy that Shields finally put these belts on the line, which means maybe in the next couple years, some other heavyweight females, like, hey, who knows? We might have a Japanese heavyweight female one day that's going to make something big that another Japanese male heavyweight has never done. It's possible that might create some interesting history to talk about. Who knows? I'm just saying, it could create more stuff in boxing to give us a wild story that none of us expected. And guys, I did not expect Claressa Shields to be in the heavyweight. And when I heard she was, I thought maybe she shouldn't because there's not a lot of good competition there. Yes, the Vanessa LePage fight was an easy fight. I expected her to go 3 rounds by knockout against her because, well, we already know the Mexican woman that defeated LePage in 2017 was 3rd round. But yet again, 2 rounds. But you know what? I think it was a good thing she did. Because there's not a lot of competition, I think Shields manages to bring these belts to life, and that's great. If she goes down to the light heavyweight division at 170 pounds or so and fights for the WBC belt, even if she doesn't become undisputed light heavyweight champion like she hasn't in the super middleweight, I'm sure that still doesn't matter because she still took the WBC belt active because as of right now, the light heavyweight in women's boxing, the WBC, has been inactive. It hasn't been brought into the mainstream since. So who knows? And we have 2 Australian females of Lonnie Daniels. I mean, wait, she's from New Zealand. And Chi Keneally from Australia as both winning one piece of that title. So we'll have to wait and see when time comes. But at the end of the day, I do want to see more of this to bring these belts to life. And I'm happy that we're having undisputed fights as around the clock in other divisions for women. Christina Ruperchet is already the autumn weight champion for the WBO, WBC, and WBA and the ring. And even though Samira Yamanaka from Japan is the IBF champion, and I am curious to see that, and even though I did put my money on Christina from Germany to win that fight, but hey, if Japan wins it, well, good job for them. They deserve it. But for this will create some interesting buzz in competition for females, probably for some years, to bring these belts to life. And that's what I'm happy. So, you know what? I guess this wasn't a waste of time. Yes, I agree with some people online saying, oh, there's not a lot of good competition in the heavyweights or light heavyweights for Claressa Shields. She should go back down the weight. I agree. But you know what? It's probably best to put these vacant titles out to the real world for the public to see. So I think that's a good thing for Shields because maybe in the future, for the next few years from now, we might see these belts alive again. So I think it's actually a good thing Shields did that. So you know what? I'll give her a couple more fights in the heavyweight, or maybe one more fight in the heavyweight, and probably another fight in the light heavyweight, and maybe go back to super middleweight or middleweight. So, or just fight in the MMA. Who knows? But it's up to her. We'll see what happens in the future. But anyway, guys, I'm gonna leave it out here, guys. Thanks for watching this episode. Thank you for tuning in. I hope you find this information interesting. Let me know who you viewers think is going to win. And with that being said, the Fox Wolf says out. See you next time.